everyone, Danielle Lechuga here, showing you how I made this beautiful Billie Eilish cake with the hand-painted plaque. So I start off with tracing the image of Billie over a light box, and I'm just using a number 2 pencil for this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll out my fondant, and when you flip it over, the other side is a little bit tacky, so it just helps in picking up the graphite. You want to give it like a second before you put it on though, because it can actually stick, like the paper will stick to the fondant. So just give it like a couple of seconds and then just start rubbing. You can use like the back of a rubber spatula or pencil. You want to make sure that the graphite transfers over the image onto the fondant. This just helps with getting the correct proportions. You want, her eyes to be spaced apart, how much they should be. And it's just really helpful in getting, an accurate image, especially with like people and stuff like that. So I'm using gel color, and I just diluted it with some lemon extract. It smells really good. It helps it just thin out a little bit. As you know, if you use gel colors, they can be a little bit thick. And so I started off with the skin tone, and then I'm going to try to stick with like the greens so that I'm not like going back and forth. And so I'm going to try to just fill in all the green. So here I'm using a darker green and a lighter green to just give it a little bit of dimension. And I'm going to pause, and I'm going to use my edible marker. Before I do the clothing, I'm going to go ahead and just do the writing with this. It is so much easier than painting it. And also, I think the paint would have definitely smeared a lot more. It smeared a smidge like on this part right here. But I was pretty happy with how it came out. And these markers are great. I'll leave a link below for them. I highly recommend them. They lasted like 3 years. I think probably even a little bit longer than that. So yeah, I'll post a link for those. And if anyone's interested in purchasing them, it's easy to do using the link. So here I'm just doing the glasses. I was a little unsure about these colors, but they worked out well. It was black. I used some black, a little bit of purple, and the green, just to kind of give the hint of a reflection. I wasn't about to get super realistic on this one. I think it worked out well because it's kind of like almost like a cartoony looking image anyways. So I was happy with how they turned out. And then for like the brush strokes for the hair, you want to use lighter pressure as you go up or down. So you just don't want it to be like harsh lines or really hard lines. You want it to look like hair. So that helps with just the lighter brush strokes for that. And here I'm doing the silver chain and some gray. And here I'm defining the fingers just using a little bit of brown. Then I'm going to go in with a little bit of extract and just blend those out to, so it doesn't look like just harsh lines. For the mouth, I used mauve. I made that by using pink with a little bit of brown, and it just got that nice color. Wasn't too pink, wasn't too bright. The only thing that's really bright on her is the green here. The highlights for the face, you want, if something's closer to you, anything that's protruding, you're going to want it to be a little bit lighter, and so you can add some little white highlights for that. And if it's like further away or more defined, you want to add darker colors to define those parts. And so the little paintbrush that I have is just great. It's actually a nail brush, and I'll post a link for that as well. It's really great for getting really thin lines. And so I use an X-Acto knife to go around the image and cut it out. And so since it was so big, I decided to use a backing for it. It was just a piece of cardboard that I cut out the exact shape of the image, and I added black to it and attached it with some corn syrup. This part was really fun. I loved it. It was like I just blended the two colors together and kind of just smushed it around, and it just gave this really beautiful smoky effect. And so I rolled that out. I did add some CMC to these before I mixed the colors together. And so I just cover my board and set that to the side to dry. I used a chocolate ganache covering because that's the flavor that they wanted, but I did add the layer of the buttercream, of the bright green buttercream to that. And so for the font, I found a Billie Eilish font, and if you just look it up on Google, just Google like for whatever design you're trying to do. Let's say it's a band or a singer, you can just look up the font, just put Billie Eilish font or whatever type of font that you're looking for. It's so easy to find. It's usually like a list, and you can just pick out the letters that you need. And I freehanded this because it's not like a really uniform font. It was just kind of easy to copy by looking at it. But if you need to do that, you can actually like make little templates and then put it all together, but it is a little more time consuming. So I wanted it to be, I don't want to be like too green, so I added a little bit of orange just to add like a little pop of color onto the cake. And you can attach this using a little brush of water. Just use a paintbrush, use a little bit of water, and it should stick really well to your fondant. I didn't have to do that here because the back of the green was still like a little bit tacky, so I got to save a little step. And so I'm just following the lines of the letters here, cutting around with my X-Acto knife. And I'm going to attach this directly to the buttercream. The great thing about buttercream is that usually if you're making a plaque or some type of topper, it'll just stick really easily to it. And so I'm making the silver chain for the border. And you can make this, or you can buy the mold already made, like a chain mold, in various sizes. And I'll post a link for those. And so I'm going to paint this silver. I'm going to add it to the bottom, and I'm going to paint it silver. And I think it just kind of gave it like a cute edgy look because it matches her necklace that she's wearing. Now I'm cutting out a number 9, and I just freehand cut this. I added lots of CMC powder to it so that it would stand straight up. And I'm going to go ahead and define the edges with the edible marker just so that it stands out really nicely against the cake. I went ahead and hand cut these fondant drips because I wasn't great at regular drips at the time. So here's our cake all finished, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I really love how the cake came out. I hope you do too. Thanks for watching. God bless.